The forgotten battlefield, the mercenary camp, was filled with noise. Fires burned, weapons clashed as soldiers trained, and alien voices shouted across the night. Yet under all the sound, there was something else, a quiet unease. Every mercenary felt it, but none wanted to speak it aloud. They had been called to war by the Empire. Their job was simple: crush a rebellion on a distant colony. The pay was good, the kind of pay mercenaries dream of. But still, many of them hesitated, because this was not just any war. There were rumors, whispers, stories told in broken voices by survivors. And in every story, one word returned again and again. Humans. The new recruits laughed when they first heard it. Humans? Just another fragile species. Deathworlders? A joke. But the veterans did not laugh. They remembered the last time. One old mercenary sat near the fire, his scarred face half hidden by the flames. His name was Garrick, a soldier who had survived too many wars. He spoke slowly, his voice low, as if afraid the shadows might hear. "You weren't there," he said. "You didn't see what they did on Varaxis Prime." The recruits leaned closer, curious. Even the ones who pretended to laugh earlier went silent. "What happened?" one of them asked. Garrick's yellow eyes narrowed. "They sent an army," he said. 50,000 soldiers, tanks, war mechs, artillery. We were sure nothing could stand against it." He paused. The fire crackled. The camp grew quiet. Then, Garrick whispered, the humans came. The recruits frowned. "How?" "Many? Not many," Garrick said. His voice dropped lower. "A single unit. Special ops, they called themselves. Fewer than 100. The recruits laughed again, but this time it was nervous laughter. 100 against 50,000? Garrick's voice hardened. Yes, 100. And by dawn, the army was gone. The campfire flickered as silence settled. One recruit shook his head. "You mean they fought and retreated? They must have used ships." "No," Garrick said. "They never retreated. They never ran. They destroyed everything. The tanks burned, the mechs fell, and the soldiers. The soldiers disappeared in the dark." His claws tapped the ground as he spoke. I saw it myself. A shadow moved through. The smoke, silent, fast. A man with nothing but a knife climbed a war mech and cut open its pilot. Another human marked targets, and fire rained from the sky as if the heavens themselves obeyed them. No matter where we hid, they found us. Number. Matter how strong our walls, they broke them. They didn't fight a war. They ended it. The recruits' faces turned pale. Some looked at their weapons, as if suddenly unsure they were enough. One recruit tried to stay brave. But they must have lost many men, too. Garrick shook his head slowly. No, that's the worst part. When the battle was over, their squad was still there. All of them. The fire hissed as if it too was afraid. Why didn't they kill you? Another recruit asked. Garrick's voice grew tight. They let me live. Maybe on purpose. Maybe so I would tell this story. So the galaxy would know. A cold wind moved through the camp. For a long time, no one spoke. Then a younger mercenary leaned closer. His voice trembled. "Do you think they'll be here? On this battlefield?" Garrick stared into the fire. "The Empire says humans will not come. But I have seen the signs. Shadows in the sky. Empty outposts. Silent patrols. I tell you now, if humans are here, you will know. And when you know, it will already be too late." The recruits swallowed hard. Suddenly, the pay did not seem so bright. Outside the camp, night was silent, too silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the dark, far beyond their firelight, something watched. Something human. The contract of blood. The next day, the mercenaries gathered in the great tent. The Empire's generals had arrived, armored in shining steel, their banners glowing. With power, the Empire never begged. They commanded Dot. At the center of the tent stood General Karthos, tall and proud, his golden cape dragging across the floor. His voice was like iron when he spoke. "You have been hired," he said. "You will fight. You will kill the rebels and bring peace to the Empire. For this, you will be paid with gold, with land, and with glory." The mercenaries looked at one another. The promise of gold was heavy, but the fear from the night before still lingered. Garak's story spread quickly through the camp, and no one could shake the image of shadows cutting down armies. Karthos slammed his fist on the table. "Do not tell me you hesitate. You are soldiers for hire, not cowards. Or has fear taken you?" No one answered. But silence was already an answer. The general's eyes narrowed. "Do you know what happens to mercenaries who refuse the Empire's contract?" He lifted a small device. With a click, a hologram appeared. The image showed mercenaries chained in the streets, their bodies broken, their heads bowed before the Empire's soldiers. "Traitors," Karthos said coldly. "That is what you become when you turn away from your duty." A murmur spread through the mercenaries. Some clenched their fists. Others lowered their eyes. The Empire's threats were real, everyone knew. Refuse, and you did not live long. But still, the fear of humans hung heavier than the fear of punishment. Finally, one mercenary captain stepped forward. His name was Varric, scar across his cheek, armor dented from past wars. He looked straight at the general. "We are not cowards," Varric said, "but we are not fools either. You promise gold and glory, but you hide the truth. We have heard whispers." "Are humans here?" The tent fell silent. Even the wind outside seemed to pause. General Karthos's eyes burned with anger. "Do not speak of humans. They are nothing." But his voice cracked for just a second, and the mercenaries noticed. Varric pressed on. "I fought at Varaxis Prime," he said, his voice low but strong. "I saw what they did. If they are here, no gold can save us." The general's hand shook on the table. Then he slammed it down again. "Enough," he roared. "Yes, they fight like demons. Yes, they humiliated armies. But this time, they will not come. And if they do, the Empire will crush them." The mercenaries looked at him, but none believed. His words were strong, but his eyes betrayed him. "Sign the contract," Karthos commanded, throwing a blood-sealed parchment onto the table. "Swear your loyalty, with your blood." One by one, the mercenaries were forced to step forward. Each took the blade, cut their palm, and pressed blood onto the page. The contract of blood, it bound them to fight, no matter the fear. But even as they signed, many trembled, because a contract could bind their hands, but it could not silence their memories. That night, after the generals left, the mercenaries gathered again. The fire burned low, the stars shining above. Varric looked at the others. "We are trapped," he said. "The Empire holds us in chains. But remember this, the chains of men are not as heavy as the chains of fear, and humans are fear itself." A hush fell over the camp. Every soldier thought the same thing. If the humans came, no contract, no gold, and no empire would save them. Far away, in the darkness beyond the hills, a silent figure crouched. Human eyes watched the campfires flicker. A small device clicked as he marked every tent, every weapon, every soldier. He whispered into his comms. "Targets confirmed. The game begins." Whispers of the dead. The mercenary camp was awake long before sunrise. Sleep did not come easily after the contract of blood was signed. Some sharpened their blades again and again, trying to calm shaking hands. Others sat in silence, their eyes locked on the fire as if the flames could protect them. but fear has its own voice. And in the quiet hours, whispers spread. They say one human took down a war mech with only a knife. They say another walked through fire without being burned. They say their eyes see in the dark. They never miss. No one could prove these stories, but no one dared to deny them either. The memories of Varax's prime still haunted many. Varek, a scarred captain, sat with Garrick by the fire. The older mercenary chewed slowly on dry meat, his face hard as stone. "Do you believe the stories?" One of the younger recruits asked. Garrick spat into the dirt. "Believe? I live them. I saw men vanish. I saw machines die as if they were. Made of paper, the humans don't fight like us. They don't fight fair. They strike from the shadows, and they don't stop until there is nothing left." The recruit swallowed hard. "But why would they come here? This is just a rebellion. A small colony." Varek looked toward the hills. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried dread. Because wherever the Empire goes to crush freedom, humans follow. They choose the impossible battles. They stand with the weak. And when they arrive, he paused, staring into the fire. Death follows. The words hung heavy. Some mercenaries shifted uncomfortably, while others lowered their heads. No amount of gold could erase the thought that death might already be marching toward them. That night, the whispers grew darker. A patrol of mercenaries failed to return. At first, the commander said they got lost. But the truth spread quickly. Only one soldier stumbled back, his armor torn, his face white with terror. He couldn't speak clearly. His words broke apart, but the message was enough. Shadows, blades, human eyes, watching. Then he collapsed, dead from wounds that looked too clean, too precise. The camp froze. Some mercenaries refused to leave the firelight after that. Even the most hardened killers kept their weapons close, jumping at every sound. Later, Garrick spoke again, his voice like gravel. "You see? They are here already. The dead tell no lies. The Empire will tell you to stand tall, but the grave does not care about courage. It only waits." One of the recruits broke down, shouting, "I didn't sign up for this. I fight for pay, not to face monsters." Varek grabbed him by the shoulder, his grip strong. "Quiet. Do you want the Empire to hear? They'll chain you for treason before the humans even touch you." But even as he spoke, his eyes betrayed the same fear. He knew the truth. The mercenaries were trapped between two deaths. The Empire would kill them if they refused. The humans would kill them if they fought. By midnight, the whispers had turned into prayers. Some begged their gods for mercy. Others cursed the Empire for dragging them into this. And then, the camp dogs began to bark. The mercenaries froze. The animals howled toward the darkness beyond the hills, teeth bared, their eyes wide. Shadows moved between the trees, silent, swift, watching. "Just scouts," one commander said, forcing a laugh. But no one believed him. Varek stood, hand on, his weapon staring into the black. He thought he saw a flicker of light, a signal, maybe, or a reflection from human eyes. He whispered to Garrick. "They're here," Garrick nodded. "And soon the whispers will turn to screams." Far away, on the other side of the hills, the human special ops prepared. Their leader, a tall soldier with cold eyes, studied the mercenary camp through night. Vision. His voice was calm as he gave orders. Mark the commanders. Disrupt the supplies. No noise, no mercy. The humans moved like shadows, weapons silent, faces hidden by the dark. The first strike would come soon. And when it did, the mercenaries' whispers of the dead would become a reality. The human arrival, the night was colder than usual. Fires burned low in the mercenary camp, but no warmth reached their hearts. Everyone felt it, the weight of unseen eyes in the dark. Varek had not slept. He sat with his weapon across his lap, watching the hills. Garrick sat near him, silent, his scarred face unreadable. Around them, soldiers twitched in their sleep, blades clutched tight, like children holding toys to chase away nightmares. Then it began. At first, it was small. A supply tent near the edge of camp collapsed, its ropes cut clean. No one saw who did it. The guards swore they saw nothing. Yet the tent fell, and when they checked, the food inside was gone. Minutes later, a weapons cache exploded silently, as if the fire had swallowed its own voice. But the flames burned bright. Too bright. The camp woke in chaos. Mercenaries shouted, running with buckets of sand, weapons in hand. Commanders tried to restore order, but the more they shouted, the more fear spread. And then they found the sea. Bodies. 3 guards at the northern watchpost. Each throat cut with perfect precision. No alarm had been raised. No sound of struggle. Just silence, followed by death. The whispers returned, sharper than ever. They're here. Humans. Death shadows. General Carthos stormed into the camp, his golden cape whipping behind him. His voice thundered. Hold the line. You are mercenaries of the Empire, not children hiding from stories. Humans are flesh and blood. They bleed like any other. Kill them, and you will be rewarded. Fear them, and you will die like cowards. But even as he spoke, the ground shook. A scream tore through the night. The southern wall collapsed. Explosives set with perfect timing had blown apart the defenses. From the smoke and dust, shadows slipped inside. The mercenaries opened fire. Bullets and plasma bolts tore through the dark. But the shadows didn't fall. They moved too fast, too silent. One mercenary swore he saw them, figures in black armor, faces covered, eyes glowing faint green. They moved like ghosts, blades and rifles striking with precision. Every shot they fired hit. Every strike was fatal. Special ops? Garrick whispered. His hands shook on his weapon. They've come. Varek shouted orders. Hold your ground. Don't break. But fear was stronger than orders. Mercenaries scattered, tripping over supplies, firing wildly into the smoke. The humans moved through them like hunters through prey. A group of 10 mercenaries charged one. Human soldier. They thought numbers would save them. But the soldier dropped smoke, vanished, and seconds later, they all fell silent, one after another, blades cutting throats, bullets finding hearts. No one even saw how it was done. The camp burned. Explosions lit the night. The Empire's banners turned to ash. Varek fought fiercely, his sword clashing against shadows. He managed to wound one soldier, just a cut across the armor. For a moment he felt pride. But then the human turned, eyes glowing through the mask, and Varek froze. The man didn't speak, didn't hesitate. His strike came swift, knocking Varek to the ground. Yet instead of finishing him, the human disappeared into the smoke, as if sparing him was worse than killing him. Varek's breath shook. They want us afraid. Garrick pulled him up, his face pale. They don't fight for victory. They fight for terror. And it works. By dawn, the camp was nothing but ruins. Half the mercenaries were dead. The rest fled into the hills. Supplies burned. Weapons destroyed. General Carthos survived, his armor scorched, his pride shattered. He stood in the ashes, staring at the destruction. His voice cracked as he spoke to his surviving officers. They are not gods, he said. They are not demons. They are only humans, and humans can die. But the words were hollow. His soldiers didn't believe. No one believed. High above, hidden on the cliffs, the special ops watched the camp smolder. Their leader lowered his binoculars. Message is clear, he said. The Empire will know. Humans are not forgotten. Wherever they march, we follow. Wherever they rule, we break. The team vanished back into the shadows, leaving only fear behind. Ashes of the contract. The sun rose slowly over the battlefield. Smoke curled upward, black and heavy, carrying the smell of burned tents and scorched metal. The mercenary camp was silent now, except for the crackle of fire and the groans of the wounded. Varric walked through the ruins, his boots crunching on ash. Around him, bodies lay scattered. Mercenaries who had once laughed, trained, and signed the contract of blood. Now they were nothing more than broken reminders of a promise that meant nothing against humans. The contract had promised gold, land, and glory. Instead, it had delivered fire, fear, and death. Garrick limped beside him, his face gray with exhaustion. "They didn't come to kill us all," he said softly. "They came to break us, to send a message." Varric stopped near the collapsed southern wall, where the first explosion had torn through the defenses. He touched the scorched stone, his fingers trembling. "The message is clear. We're not soldiers. We're warnings." General Carthos stood in the center of the camp, his golden armor dented and blackened. His cape was gone, burned to ash. His eyes were bloodshot, his pride cracked like shattered glass. Around him, the surviving commanders stood silent. None dared to speak. Finally, Carthos roared, his voice echoing through the ruins. "Cowards! You let fear break you. You let shadows defeat you. Humans are nothing but flesh. You saw them bleed. You saw them fall. Yet you ran." But even as he shouted, his voice shook. He was not convincing them. He was convincing himself. One commander stepped forward, her face pale. "General, half our force is gone. Supplies are destroyed. If humans return, there will be nothing left to command." Carthos glared at her. "Then we rebuild. The Empire demands victory. The contract binds us. No one leaves. Do you hear me? No one." But deep in their hearts, the mercenaries knew. The Empire's contract was already dead, burned to ash along with the camp. That night, the survivors huddled close together. Some whispered prayers. Others sharpened what little weapons remained. But the loudest sound was silence, the kind that spoke of broken spirits. Varric sat apart from the rest, his sword lying across his knees. Garrick joined him, carrying a flask of bitter drink. "They'll come again," Garrick muttered, staring into the fire. "Not tonight, not tomorrow, but soon. That's how they fight. Strike, vanish, return. Like storms you cannot escape." Varric's jaw tightened. "And we? What do we do? Wait for the storm to swallow us?" Garrick's eyes narrowed. "We were paid to fight rebels, not to face humans. I say we leave before the storm comes again." Varric looked at him sharply. "And the Empire? You know what happens if we abandon contract." Garrick let out a dry laugh. "I know what happens if we stay." Before Varric could answer, a figure stumbled into the firelight. It was a young mercenary, one of the recruits who had survived. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he held up a torn piece of black fabric. "I found this near the northern ridge," he whispered. The fabric was smooth, dark, almost invisible in the light, but everyone recognized it. It belonged to the humans. Gasps spread. Someone dropped their weapon. Someone else muttered, "They were here, watching." Susie. Varric clenched the fabric in his fist. Cold sweat ran down his spine. "They never left," he said. The next morning, the Empire sent word. Reinforcements were on the way. Orders were clear. Hold the colony, crush the rebellion, and prepare for humans. But those who read the orders felt no courage. They only felt chains tightening around their necks. The mercenaries gathered once more in the ruined tent of command. The contract of blood lay there, burned at the edges, stained with soot. Garek stared at it, his scarred hand resting on the table. "This paper means nothing," he said quietly. The humans tore it apart without touching it. No one argued. Not even General Karthos. Far beyond the hills, in a hidden cave, the human special ops watched through advanced scopes. Their leader smiled faintly as he saw the camp still burning. "They're broken," he said to his team. "The Empire thinks gold can buy loyalty. We proved fear can buy silence. Next time, they won't even raise their weapons." The soldiers nodded. Silent, patient, shadows waiting for the next strike. And so, the ashes of the contract rose into the sky, carrying a single truth across the battlefield. No empire, no gold, no oath could stand against the arrival of humans. Shadows of betrayal, a mercenary camp had no more songs. No laughter, no pride. Only silence. The Empire's reinforcements arrived at dawn-shiny soldiers with polished armor and banners held high. They marched into the ruins, noses wrinkling at the smell of ash. Their commander, Lord Venner, sneered as he looked at the broken mercenaries. "So this is the proud army hired to crush a rebellion?" He mocked. "You look more like beggars than soldiers. What did you face here? Beasts or coward shadows?" No one answered. Not even General Karthos. Varric and Garek stood among the survivors, their weapons dull, their eyes tired. They knew the truth, but they also knew the Empire would never believe it. Lord Venner slammed his fist on the command table. "You speak of humans, but I see no proof. Only ruins and excuses. Perhaps some of you exaggerate to cover your weakness." Karthos bowed stiffly, his pride cracked, but not dead. "With respect, Lord Venner, they were here. Special ops, the ghosts of Earth. They destroyed us before we even drew our blades." Venner laughed coldly. "Ghosts? Humans are extinct in power. The Empire made sure of that long ago. Do not insult me with fairy tales." But deep in the shadows of the tent, Varric whispered to Garek, "He will learn, all of them will." That night, whispers grew stronger. Mercenaries sat in corners, muttering about leaving, about breaking their contract. But breaking the contract meant death by the Empire's own hand. Staying meant death by humans. It was no longer a question of if they would die, only how. Varric knew something had to break. He felt it in the air, heavy like a storm about to crash down. And then, betrayal came. It began with supplies. A hidden cache food, weapons, medicine was discovered missing. Guards swore they hadn't seen anything. No alarms were raised. But half the supplies were gone, as if swallowed by the night. The Empire blamed the mercenaries. Lord Venner shouted in fury, "Thieves! Traitors! Do you think you can steal from the Empire?" He had 10 mercenaries executed at once, their bodies thrown outside the camp as an example. But still, the thefts continued. Every night, more weapons vanished, more food disappeared. And always, there were no signs of how. Some swore it was the humans again. Others whispered darker thoughts, that mercenaries themselves had betrayed the camp. One evening, Varric found Garek slipping out of the camp through a gap in the ruins. He followed him silently, suspicion heavy in his chest. Beyond the walls, hidden in the rocks, Garek met with someone. A cloaked figure. Human? Rebel? Varric couldn't tell. He only heard whispers. "The contract is broken. The Empire bleeds us dry." "We want out," the cloaked figure nodded. "Then stand aside. When the humans strike again, do not resist. Survival lies in silence." Varric's heart pounded. His closest friend had betrayed the camp. The next day, Garek acted as if nothing had happened. He sharpened his sword, laughed bitterly at Venner's threats, and drank with the other survivors. But Varric saw the truth in his eyes. Garek was waiting for the humans to return and finish what they started. That night, Varek confronted him by the dying fire. "You've chosen your path," Varek said quietly. Garek's jaw tightened. "There is no path, only death. Better to bend than be broken." Varek's hand tightened on his blade. Betrayal has its price. But before the argument could finish, an alarm rang across the camp. Explosions lit the night. Smoke rose again. The humans had returned. Panic spread. Empire soldiers shouted, forming ranks. Mercenaries scrambled, some running to fight, others dropping their weapons and fleeing. But this attack was different. The humans didn't strike the walls. They struck inside. Explosives had already been planted in the heart of the camp. Barracks collapsed. Fire spread fast. Varek fought his way through the chaos, blade in hand. He searched the smoke for Garek, but saw only shadows. Shadows that looked human. Shadows that moved too fast to fight. Screams filled the night as the humans cut through the camp like wolves among sheep. Lord Venner tried to rally his men, but a sniper's bullet took him through the throat. He collapsed, choking on his own blood, his golden armor stained red. His soldiers broke instantly, their discipline gone. General Carthos roared, swinging his sword wildly, but even he knew the truth. This was not a battle. This was a hunt dot, and the humans were the hunter's dot at the edge of the burning camp. Varek finally found Garek. His friend stood with his weapon dropped, arms raised toward the shadows. "They're here," Garek whispered, almost smiling. "They promised survival to those who do not resist." From the smoke, a human soldier emerged, black armor gleaming, rifle aimed. The green glow of his visor lit Garek's face. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the soldier lowered his weapon and passed by, silent as a ghost. Garek exhaled in relief. "See, Varek? Survival lies in silence." But Varek could not feel relief, only dread, because he knew silence was just another chain, and humans were pulling it tighter. Judgment of the shadows. The camp burned like a dying star. Towers collapsed into ash. The air was thick with smoke and screams. For the mercenaries, there was no escape, only fire and fear. Varek ran through the ruins, his sword heavy in his hand. He had fought battles before against rebels, beasts, even rival clans, but nothing like this. Against humans, there was no battle. There was only judgment. From every shadow they came. Black armor, silent steps, rifles glowing green in the dark. They did not roar, did not shout. They moved like a storm, precise and unstoppable. Mercenaries begged. Others threw down their weapons. Some tried to fight, but their blades and guns meant nothing. The humans were faster, sharper, colder. Varek's heart pounded as he ducked behind a wall, smoke stinging his eyes. He saw Garak again, standing tall in the chaos, untouched. The humans passed him by, as if he were invisible. General Carthos still fought. His golden armor was cracked, his sword stained, his cape burned away. But his pride held him upright. He roared at the shadows, swinging wildly. "You cannot break me. I am sworn to the Empire." But his voice was swallowed by gunfire. A human blade struck from the dark, slicing through his armor. The general fell to his knees, coughing blood, his sword clattering to the ground. As he looked up, he saw the visor of a human soldier staring down at him. No words, no mercy. Just a single shot. Carthos collapsed, his golden armor finally still. The last pillar of command was gone. The mercenary army had no leader now, no contract, no hope. Some tried to run into the night, but snipers picked them off before they reached the ridge. Others hid in ruins, only to be dragged out like prey. The Empire's proud force was nothing more than scattered animals in a cage of fire. Varek felt the chain of the contract tighten around his throat one last time. The Empire had bought their loyalty with gold. But gold had no meaning when shadows decided who lived and who died. He turned to Garak, who still stood calm, watching the soldiers pass. "They spared you," Garak said bitterly. "Why? What did you promise them?" Garak's eyes glowed in the firelight. "I promised silence. I promised I would not raise my weapon. That is all they ask. Defiance brings death. Submission brings survival." Varric shook his head. "That is not survival. That is slavery." Suddenly, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. Taller than the rest, armor darker, visor glowing like fire. The leader, the human commander. He stood before the survivors, his voice calm but sharp as steel. "You were paid by the Empire to kill the weak, to crush those who could not fight back. You thought war was gold and contracts." His gaze swept over them, cold and unblinking. "But war is chains, and tonight we break them." He raised his hand. The soldiers stepped aside, leaving only silence and flames. Varric felt every eye turn toward him and Garak. The commander pointed at Garak first. "This one obeys. He lives." Then his visor turned toward Varric. "And this one resists. What do you choose?" The air froze. Garak whispered harshly, "Bow your head, Varric. Live. It's the only way." But Varric stood tall, his chest rising. With each breath, he thought of the contract, the lies, the deaths. He thought of chains of fear, chains of gold, chains of silence. And he felt them breaking inside him. "I choose." His voice was steady, louder than the crackle of fire. "I choose to fight." The humans did not move. For a long moment, even the fire seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, the commander lowered his weapon. "You are not like the rest," he said. His voice was almost respectful. "You understand, the Empire owns nothing. Not gold. Not chains. Not even you." He turned away, and the soldiers followed him into the shadows. The fire swallowed their shapes until they were gone, as if they had never been there. Only ashes remained. The night grew quiet. Survivors crawled from ruins, shaking, broken. Garak collapsed to his knees, sweat running down his face. "They left us alive," he whispered. "Why?" Varric sheathed his blade slowly. His voice was heavy, but steady. "They didn't leave us alive," he said. "They left us with a message." "What message?" Garak asked. Varric stared into the smoke rising into the stars. "That? The Empire is already dead. They just haven't realized it yet." And so, the story of the mercenaries ended not with glory, not with gold, but with judgment. The humans had shown them the truth. Chains could be forged by contracts, by fear, by empires. But humans were the hammer that broke them. And in the shadows, every mercenary knew one thing. They would never raise their blades against humanity again.